Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Coast Council's 2020 State of the Region Address. My name's Caroline Hutchinson, and I'm your host of this special In Conversation where we look back at the year that was 2020. And of course, it was unprecedented, which is why we are not holding a live event today. We are virtual for the first time. So wherever you are across the Sunshine Coast, we're really grateful that you've joined us today. And a lot of our conversation today will be about the challenges of 2020 and the efforts of the people of the Sunshine Coast to get us through. So, to get us underway, welcome, please, our panel for today. First and foremost, our Mayor, Mark Jamieson.
Thank you, Caroline.
And then I think a lot of people are very excited to see the face of our new CEO, Emma Thomas.
Thank you, Caroline.
Next, we have Andrew Carey from Huddle Insurance.
Thank you.
And Vicky Meyer, who is the IFYS Executive Manager of Community Services. And last but by no means least, and you'll see that we have actually broken her out of hospital to be here today, our biodiversity leader of the year, our young biodiversity leader, and our Biosphere Community Reference Group Youth Rep, Ella Woodborne. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Yeah, doing well. One of my old conditions decided to say hello again, so...
All right then, so that's good. You look well. We'll get you through this morning. All right then, but to get things underway, we'd really like a welcome to country. So I'd like to thank Lyndon Davis. Lyndon is a local Aboriginal artist, educator and cultural performer who was born and raised on the Sunshine Coast. Lyndon is a traditional custodian and representative of the local Carey people. I'd like to acknowledge Lyndon's extensive contribution to reconciliation on the Sunshine Coast, not least his exciting Indigenous cultural education programs in schools, universities and workplaces. He founded the Gubbi Gubbi Dance Troupe, which brings together local Aboriginal artists and performers, and has performed for the Queen and the Dalai Lama. So I think you're going to agree we're lucky to have Lyndon share his culture with our community. Welcome, Lyndon.
Thanks, Caroline. Yo, Wanya ngalam jananggo kalaunda. Karinene nami jojo mobirono gayan man murangai jagun gun ganyon go. Biriana naju barnji jimi jakan baran nujuno jundul goji. Yo hey, Wanya yenyaran gan. Nara. Hello, my name is Lyndon Davis, descendant of the traditional custodians of the Maroochy, Malula, Maradan districts. So I'm very privileged to be here today to say Wanya. Wanya is our word in the Gubbi Gubbi language that talks about welcome. But descendant of those great custodians, and I'm very privileged to be able to be here today to speak on their behalf and to use some of the language. But you know, they looked after everything, the smallest thing from the largest, everything in between, following the seasons. Right now, the season's coming into Bunya. You fellas, you want to know, Bunyas are coming in. We were just out at the Bunya Mountains on the weekend, representing out there on grandfather's side. Now I'm back over here on the Sunshine Coast area, representing my grandmother's side, and to tell everybody that Bunya season is about to take place on the Sunshine Coast District. So don't be sleeping underneath bunya trees or resting underneath the shade of a bunya tree on a windy day, December through to March, because you might get a little surprise there. Bunya nuts will be falling. Yeah, and that's some stories talking about that's how people got short. But anyway, I'm very privileged to be here to say Wanya and to use this musical instrument as a welcoming gesture, welcome all the good people and to welcome all the good spirits. This is a musical instrument everybody knows is the didgeridoo. Oh yeah, this is a beauty. North Queensland bloodwood, and so I'm going to use it today to say Wanya ngalam to everybody. Your way.
Beautiful, well done. Thank you so much, Lyndon, and thanks for everything that you do to make us feel welcome and understand culture a bit more on the Sunshine Coast. We're very grateful to you. Thank you. All right then, it's time to, as a year draws to a close, to reflect on the fact that 2020 has been a year that will not be forgotten. So I think that we'll open up with the Mayor. What a year. There's been a lot of highs and lows, I'm sure you'll agree. So what has 2020 meant for Council and our community?
Well, I think, Caroline, as you said, it's certainly been a very memorable year, and I don't think people necessarily need to be reminded of the reasons for that or the challenges. However, I think it's worth just acknowledging that it's an ill wind that blows no good. And if I think of, the good things that have happened on the Sunshine Coast this year, I think the community connectedness. I think people's reaching out to one another with a sense of goodwill as we all fought the pandemic. I think the very genuine way in which Sunshine Coast has acknowledged that this was a troubling time. They listened to what the Chief Health Officer said. People responded very well, which in an Australian context is sometimes a little bit difficult. But people responded well, and I think the results speak for themselves. We've got through the year safely.
It's been tough for business, though.
Has been tough for business, but again, in Queensland, better than other states because we didn't have to shut down for nearly as long. And clearly that impact on business has varied according to the business. We've certainly had some great outcomes if I think about the opening of the international airport. Notwithstanding the fact we haven't had international flights because of COVID, but the airport is swinging back into full capacity again now, and that's a great sign ahead of Christmas. We brought ashore the international broadband submarine cable, which is a unique asset that the Sunshine Coast has that nobody else has. Our announcement only in the last couple of weeks about a development partnership with Walker Corporation relating to the development of our city centre in Maroochydore, I think will give people again a great deal of comfort that we're in the right place.
You like seeing those cranes back at work in the city centre?
Well, look, I think they are a sign of prosperity. And I mean, we're unique insofar as most cities start in the middle and grow out. Ours started out and grew in. So the most up-to-date digital technology contemporary city centre that can possibly be built is underway. And that's a big advantage to our community long term.
And you mentioned inside that the Undersea Cable. I'm interested in that, and I want to ask the basic question. Is my internet at home going to be faster, or is that Undersea Cable really just going to service business?
No, the cable is an international cable, so it connects us offshore, but obviously links onshore with various networks we have. It's interesting to note there's over 400 cables around the world covering about 1.1 million kilometres, and they provide about 95 to 97% of all connectivity. So certainly in terms of bringing your movies, you won't get to bed any earlier, but take it from a business point of view, there's about $10 trillion worth of transactions going through those international cables every day. So to be only the second place on the eastern seaboard of Australia outside of Sydney, to have one of those cables as an enabler for business into the future, we're very well placed. And I'm absolutely delighted that we've been able to position ourselves there.
And what about the environment? I mean, COVID has been interesting for the environmental focus as well. What's it looking like here?
Well, look, I'm proud again to say to the people of the Sunshine Coast and those who visit us regularly, about 55% of our total land area is native vegetation. Only 15% is earmarked for urban development. We have the largest conservation estate in southeast Queensland of any council. We have the largest land for wildlife program in the country. We can talk a little later about what we're doing with the Blue Heart, what we're doing with the biosphere. We've currently got a coastal hazard adaptation strategy underway to help us inform our community about what the future might hold. I think we're very well placed, and that's such an important part of who we are. And I guess our efforts as a council are to maintain that great natural environment, but also accept that there are people who want to move here, just as people have moved here for the last 50 years, and we need to find ways that we can cater for them as well without killing the golden goose.
You mentioned before about COVID and the community and that it's got us through. Council has done some good work with local agencies on that.
Absolutely. Council has done a lot of work with a range of groups, about the financial impacts that are impacting our community, and we recognise that we needed to be very mindful as a new council about putting a lid on rates. And that's not always easy to do because people still want the services to be provided. But in 2015, we'd put aside $5 million as an emergency fund, thinking it would be a natural disaster that might be necessary for. Here we are with a global pandemic, and we were able to use that $5 million to provide a $35 rebate back to each ratepayer, and that of course meant in effect no real increase for the majority of ratepayers. In addition to that, we've had a number of programs, two major programs around community grants, which have been focused on community groups, sporting clubs and the like, to help them through. There's a $240 million capital works program, and the multiplier effect of that in our economy for local businesses is also quite profound.
And the thing that I was really impressed by was the work that Council did to alleviate homelessness during COVID.
Look, it has been a concern for me for some time, and late last year we got together the Mayor's Round Table on homelessness, and a number of parties wanted to participate, and that really has manifested itself. I think COVID accelerated some of our responses, but there are too many people on the Sunshine Coast who don't have a roof over their head, and you know, you'll appreciate that without a roof over your head and a decent night's sleep, the rest of your day or week isn't going to be that great.
Yeah, and we think about the sort of the invisible homeless, don't we? Like mothers living in cars with kids, those sort of people, and they can be hard to access.
Yeah, look, I'd like to think people would be now realising that there are a number of services available for them. We set up the hub, the Homelessness Hub at the sports stadium at Kawana, and we managed to assist a large number of people, and the community groups that were supporting us managed to assist a large number of people through, you know, one of the challenges we've got is that we only have about half as much as the Queensland average in community housing. We're about 2% of total housing. Around the state it's 3.6%. So there's a catch-up required here on the Sunshine Coast. But given our appeal for people of all types, that puts pressure on housing and forces some out.
That catch-up, because that's a big number. Well, I mean, people want to move to the Sunshine Coast. That catch-up, will that come from federal or state funding or both? Well,
it's principally a state government responsibility, community housing. I mean, Council has recognised that we need to protect our community, and whether it's around homelessness or another great scourge of domestic violence, whilst it's not necessarily the area of responsibility for Council, I recognise as the chief advocate for the people of the Sunshine Coast that I've got a job to do in making sure the state government and on other issues the federal government are making sure, you know, we're getting our fair share.
Lots of work to do.
Always is.
Yeah, but there was good news too. I mean, COVID also landed some sporting teams in our lap.
Well, I think that's been one of the outstanding achievements for the region was the Melbourne Storm calling the Sunshine Coast home, and that was fundamentally based on a number of years of cultivating that relationship. So we've always had a good, strong camaraderie with the Melbourne Storm. The fact that they went on to win the premiership speaks in volumes about the Sunshine Coast.
Oh, absolutely. We were very deeply involved there.
And of course, the number of AFL clubs also called the Sunshine Coast home, and our facility at Fisherman's Road was widely recognised as one of the best in the country. And of course, we had a number of netball teams here as well. So that's all good well. The focus on the Sunshine Coast Stadium has allowed us to get commitments from the state government for a $20 million contribution. Council has already committed to $17 million. That's it, over and above the $45 million we've already invested there. We've got $11 million from two local philanthropists, which is almost unheard of. Yep. And we're just waiting now for the federal government to finalise their commitment, which will enable us to go to the next stage of development at the stadium. It will enable us to seat around 16,500, or cater for 16,500 with around about 11,500 in their own seat. All right, and that's about a $70 million commitment. It's a $68 million spend all up, But again, with a view to the next stage beyond that, having us ready for the Olympics in 2032, I think we're very well placed.
Yeah. So I think we'll talk more about this later, but the Blue Heart Project, that's an environment project, and there's been an award won here. What is the Blue Heart Project?
Well, the Blue Heart is an area on the North Shore, so on the Maroochy River floodplain, North Maroochy floodplain, where we recognise that temporary inundation is going to continue to move to permanent inundation, and we need to be taking steps to manage that and indeed utilise it in positive ways.
Yep.
So we're developing a plan for a blue carbon farm, which is effectively storing carbon, which is in the atmosphere naturally, in and around waterways, trees, mangroves, seagrasses, for the benefit of both the land owned by us, the government, and Unity Water, which is about 1/4 of the 5,000 hectares. The balance is owned by private parties, and they were principally former cane farms. And in time, we will be able to create offsets for big emitters by utilising that area, which is naturally going to be inundated.
Right, okay, and as I said, we might, we'll speak more about that later. So thank you, Mr Mayor, thanks so much. And we will continue our conversation with you, but we'll get to some of the rest of our panel. Firstly, we have our IFYS Executive Manager for Community Services, Vicky Meyer. Now, Vicky, can you talk to us through IFYS's role in assisting the community in 2020?
Thanks, Caroline. I think 2020, as you said, has been an unprecedented year. We've continued to deliver the services that we've delivered for 40 years to Queensland communities, and that's from child protection services through to disability homelessness services. 2020 has been such an interesting year. The increase we've seen in demand for services has been significant. That's from individuals and families experiencing significant financial crisis, and the poverty that we've seen as well. So the young people that we've seen coming to school without lunches, who haven't had breakfast. We've seen multiple families that have struggled to maintain a house and a roof over their heads. So for us, it's been business as usual in many respects, but we've seen significant increase along with all of our colleagues in the community sector. It's been huge.
Yeah, a very big year. Another guest we have today, we have Chief Operating Officer of Huddle Insurance, Andrew Carey. Thanks for joining us.
Hi,
now, you have moved your headquarters to the Sunshine Coast, offering insurance and really in the digital age. Andrew, tell us, what has 2020 meant for your business?
Yeah, so I think to clarify that point, so our head office is still in Sydney. We do have a large operational centre on the Sunshine Coast, which is part of that move. So for us, 2020, I don't think there'll be a single person that talks today that doesn't talk about the challenge that it was. We've been very fortunate that we have had growth over that period of time. Some of the challenges that we've faced, we again being a digital business, we very rapidly moved to the work at home sort of situation both here and in Sydney, which allowed our staff to get up and running very quickly. We were probably a good month or two sort of ahead of everybody else. I was in Melbourne the first week of March, and it was actually quite scary to look at all these people wearing face masks, because that was not happening here. And so I was there with one of the CEOs. We flew back and immediately just sent everybody home and said, right, from now on, you're working from home, which gave us definitely a competitive advantage. And when you start talking about those other advantages as well, in a tech-related business, you have engineers who we rely on heavily that are in Sydney, for example, commute an hour and a half a day. All of a sudden, that's time that's being put into productivity. So
it's been an interesting change for businesses everywhere.
Absolutely. So for us, some of the key challenges, I think our leadership team on the Sunshine Coast has done an outstanding job of ensuring the mental health and well-being of our staff has been forefront, especially with the stay-at-home, sort of with working from home, I should say, and. So, those challenges were certainly there, and I think the guys have done an outstanding job. So for us as a business, we've come through it well. We've had great growth, and we've got some good announcements in the future to come out of it.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. And now moving to one of our youngest rising stars, our Young Biodiversity Leader of the Year and Biosphere Community Reference Group Youth Representative, Ella Woodborne. What has 2020 looked like for you and your generation living here on the Sunshine Coast?
Sort of just to reiterate what everyone said, I think we can all agree that 2020 has indeed been a very challenging year. So I'm still in school, and I personally found the online environment a very difficult place to learn, and I think a lot of my peers would agree. I particularly have a sympathy for the grade 12s who just finished their final year. I think they missed out on a lot of opportunities, like their formal and their camp. And obviously also they're the first one to pioneer the ATAR system. So yeah, I really feel bad for them. And although I'm quite happy on my own, I know a lot of people this year have really struggled with disconnection and the mental health effects that sort of stem from that. I think we've all sort of realised that in the long term, social media isn't a really effective form of communication. And unfortunately, it's something that my generation relies very heavily upon. Financially, I understand it's been difficult for a broad range of people, but I know for at least my age group, a lot of us have lost their jobs that are like part-time and casual, which means a lot of them weren't able to receive the JobKeeper scheme. And also in regards to opportunities, we've also been at a loss in regards to our usual co-curricular activities, like I didn't get to do debating. A lot of school athletes didn't get to compete in their competition, so unfortunately they missed out on a lot in that regard. But on the bright side, I try to see everything from a silver lining perspective, and I personally found isolation and the lockdown period was actually a very beneficial time. I think it was a very good opportunity to get away from the pressures that sort of everyday life puts on you, and from the school environment and from the everyday working environment. And for me, at least, it gave me a very long time to sort of realign with myself and reevaluate what I valued. And I think I'll dare speak for the collective and say that I think a lot of people were sort of given the opportunity to reevaluate what they value and what they think is important, because you know, unfortunately, with a lot of the deaths surrounding COVID and economic loss, I think all the sort of little everyday stresses have really been put into perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people appreciated the slowdown. Interesting to hear that even young people did. Thanks, Ella, and we'll come back to you again. But now I think a lot of people are going to be very pleased to get possibly their first look at our brand new CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Sunshine Coast Council, Emma Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you bring to us a wealth of experience in managing large public service organisations. You've been involved in the delivery of major projects and have a well-demonstrated approach to values-based leadership, which is going to shape the Sunshine Coast in the years to come. And community engagement and service delivery are your cornerstones. Now, you started your career as an aeronautical engineer with the Royal Australian Air Force. And why the Sunshine Coast?
Oh, well, I still have to pinch myself that I'm actually here. Even 10 years ago, I was saying to my team, if I ever had a dream job, it would be to be CEO of Sunshine Coast Council. And I mean, there's the obvious part of course, this is the most livable place on the planet, and it's very, very beautiful. But it was much more than that. It's the progressive culture and aspiration of the community that engages with a discussion on climate change, engages with environmental concerns and wanting to make sure that our planet is kept, well, and our livability is there for the future. The progressive nature of a council that's driving economic development and understanding that we need to bring together the big forces like good health, good education, but also businesses, and bringing up good opportunities for entrepreneurs and others, so people have places to work and that we're not forced out of the region as families grow and they have to find somewhere else to go and work.
Now, I know you're very new to the role, so any questions are probably, we're challenging at the moment. But what are your thoughts about continuing to connect council with different groups on the Sunshine Coast?
I'm really a big believer in diversity, and that diversity produces a much better solution or outcome to whatever we're doing, and that can reflect on the council itself or other people's businesses, the community. And we have a really diverse community here. We have so many people moving into the coast all the time. We're not a stable, stagnant force. We've got always lots of new ideas. So I think our ability to harness ideas, to have conversations in a way where people feel like they can engage at any time, have debates, be open in the discussions that we have, but learn from one another, is a great opportunity for us, and I think we'll be stronger for it.
All right, well, thank you. Now, we have already touched on some of the work that was done around homelessness. And Vicky, I just wanted to turn to you, if I could, because Mayor Jamieson mentioned that the stadium was used as a hub during COVID for homeless people. What did your organisation do around that? What was your contribution there?
The last 9 months or so have been so fast-paced, so significant, and I think what we've done is, as a community sector, stood up in the face of COVID to support our community. We've had great advocacy from the Mayor and from the Council. We wouldn't have been able to have stood up the stadium response without the Council's response to homelessness and their advocacy, but all of the agencies that got on board. So we had 11 agencies at the height of COVID who were supporting people in housing crisis. So it provided a one-stop shop for individuals who really needed a hot shower, a hot meal, to be able to access those essential services. We saw over 300 people in the course of the weeks that we ran that response, and it amounted to 120 hours, so it was a really significant response.
It was, and it happened quite quickly too. I know the Sunshine Coast Council Community Strategy Leadership Group were involved, but the response was pretty quick, wasn't it?
It was, and it wouldn't have happened without the community strategy. So the community strategy has really provided that foundation for us, the relationships, the ability for us to act with permission, to enact what the community have requested in terms of where they want to live, what they value in their community. And we saw that really strongly come through from the stadium response, the homelessness responses since then, but also the outpouring of community spirit. So we have seen volunteers come out in their masses to support the community during this last few months.
And I don't want to pry, but I'm just wondering if you could give us an idea of someone who might have accessed the Homeless Hub, like what sort of local residents were there?
So we've seen over 160 reports of rough sleepers in the last few months. We've supported over 200 adults and over 70 children to find accommodation. So picking a story out of all of those cases is really hard, but one that really comes to mind was right at the beginning of the pandemic when we were alerted to somebody that had gone from the hospital out into the community, had a COVID test, and it was really where people really didn't know what that really looked like for individuals. We were encouraging everyone to self-isolate, and at the same time, we didn't have somewhere for him to go. He moved into a motel, and I think one of the really interesting things about that case in particular was that the individual had been homeless for 20 years. He'd gone from Caloundra to Maroochydore on a bus. He'd only recognised the bus by symbols on the bus to be able to get from one place to the other. But when he was given accommodation, for the first few weeks he slept on the floor. It wasn't until a few weeks after that he progressed to a bed and really settled into the accommodation. He's now living a full, healthy life. He was very unwell at the time. He's gained employment and now is sustaining a tenancy. And that's due to all of the services coming together, working in collaboration. And I think, as you said, Caroline, the agility. We just leapt into action.
I think it was already up and running before I'd even heard of the Homelessness Hub, and I was just so proud of the Sunshine Coast that it had happened. So, Mayor Mark, you mentioned before that homelessness and those sort of issues aren't really the core business of council, but it's really important that you stay engaged.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody recognises that council is the closest level of government to the community, and if we are to have a happy community, then we need to bring everyone on the ride. And it's difficult, and I take my hat off to groups like Vicky's and the many others that assisted us. And it demonstrated that when we work together with a common purpose, we can achieve better outcomes. we've got a long way to go because we've got enormous demand on housing at the moment, and that will probably increase again when the JobKeeper payments come off in March. So this has been a perennial problem for our region, but it's probably been spiked as a consequence of COVID, and that is a challenge for us.
Yep. And so, Emma, as CEO of a big organisation like Council, this year we already heard from Andrew about Huddle and that we've had to learn to work differently. I imagine it's no different at Council.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm only new here, but in hearing the stories from the council team, they coined the phrase or the hashtag COVID kindness, and that went viral throughout the world. And I think the discussions and the stories that you've just told, Vicky, that real reinforcement of that kindness of the community, and really proud of the council team for really living that value of being kind, but also. We've talked today also about we went faster and we went slower at the same time. And I think the combination of those two things was great. We're all immensely thankful, I'm sure, across the whole of Australia for our ICT teams who rolled out things at the rate of knots to keep us all connected. They are incredible.
I'm just amazed at the things we've learned. Like, we all know, like old people like me, we all know how to Zoom now and how to log in with a barcode when you go to a restaurant. We just had to learn new things.
We did. We had to learn, so we were motivated, but our teams connected behind us and gave us the technology, gave us the ability to do that super quick so we could do it. But also people enjoyed the slower pace of being able to get up and walk the dog and then come to their first meeting. And so for all the negative things about the fact that we've been disconnected from our communities through these things, I think we've also learnt some things that we'll keep and we'll really love.
Hands up anyone on the panel who did at least one Zoom wearing a nice top and their tracky bottoms.
Oh.
All right. Now we are talking about the international broadband cable. Now, Mayor Mark, is March when that's going to come online?
Yeah, look, it came ashore in March of this year. There's been various testing done. It is now fully connected to the cable landing station adjacent to the new city centre in Maroochydore. We'll have another major announcement in a couple of months that will really take the whole investment to a new level. But I think people on the Sunshine Coast can be really proud that we are, as I said earlier, the only other destination outside of Sydney on the eastern seaboard that has connectivity to the rest of the world. And that connectivity links us to Hong Kong, to Tokyo and to LA. And in terms of the Asian connection, we are the fastest point of contact. And from a business stimulus perspective, that's worth a lot to this community.
Is it going to be worth jobs?
Absolutely. It'll be worth a large number of jobs from businesses who will see the value in being right on top, and Huddle might be an example, right on top of where the cable comes ashore effectively. It will light up all of Queensland, certainly southeast Queensland. It's always been my desire that this become a catalyst for investment and better communication into some of our far western communities or our far northern communities, certainly our 17 Indigenous council communities that are largely in Cape York. So this has the potential to benefit a lot of people, but certainly be a really important foundation stone for the development of our new city centre, but the broader Sunshine Coast economy. And certainly Walker Corporation, who have become our new partners in the city centre, saw this as being something quite distinct for the Sunshine Coast. And let's face it, with Sydney being the only place on the eastern seaboard having these cables in the past, that has been an enormous benefit to their economy, to the sort of industry that's developed there. And this will be an attraction to that similar digital industries that are very kind on our environment and very positive on packets. So, and that's what...
It's a really important thing though, isn't it? And we keep hearing the words that, maybe Singaporean businesses or those sort of large global businesses might like to see us as a potential headquarters. Are you having those conversations yet? Are the right people talking to you?
Yeah, look, there's a range of conversations going on. The impact of COVID has, in some cases, slowed some of those conversations down. But as we said earlier, also heightened people's awareness around digital storage. Do we really want it stored offshore, or would we be better off having it stored here on the Sunshine Coast? Bandwidth to deal with Teams and Zoom and various other network connectors. And there are already young entrepreneurs here on the Sunshine Coast who have been developed through the Mayor's Technology Awards and other programs that are undertaken. A number of our schools are very focused on the digital future and preparing kids to capitalise on that. So in many ways, whilst it's always good to have some new outside blood coming in, we're developing our own homegrown industry in many respects as well.
You already mentioned that Huddle is one great example of a new business attracted to the Sunshine Coast. So Andrew, Huddle's a leading insurance company. Why did you choose the Sunshine Coast over other major capital cities?
Yeah, great question. I think, look, we're talking about the cable and the importance of the cable, and I think there's a lot of benefits, certainly from a speed perspective and the capabilities that are associated with that. But I think on the other side of something like the cable coming in, it is about the intention of council and clearly defining themselves above all others about what their future intent is, and that's actually the attractive part. Like we look at that and go, this is a council that wants to make a difference, wants to change, wants to bring innovation and technology to the region, and you do that, and then all of a sudden you start attracting that talent. And what we've seen with COVID now is because everything's changed in that work from home situation, you can see that, you know, like I remember for all the flights to and from Sydney, I'd be sitting there and you'd start talking to somebody and, well, what do you do? Well, I'm chief tech officer here, and all these people that were commuting now, they don't need to commute. So they can stay, their money stays here as well. So for us, that was a very, very attractive part of the original conversations. And the business development team as well for the council was incredible with the conversations we had. Like I flew the CEOs up, and we sort of had this whirlwind tour and sort of met lots of different people and were shown lots of different parts of the area. I was already living up here, so it was easy for me, but that was definitely an important part of that.
But you're already living here. We like the Sunshine Coast because we like the way it is. How do you see the Sunshine Coast changing over the next 10 years? And what do you think that impact will have on the lifestyle of the people that you're attracting here?
Isn't it interesting, the answer today versus the answer 9 months ago? So you speak to any real estate agent today, they do not have enough stock. So I think everything's changed. Like everything from development to the way people are going to view real estate, there's some significant changes. And with that, from what I've seen in the conversations that I've had, is we are going to see a significant shift from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, etc., moving to the Sunshine Coast. And hopefully we're going to see some people that bring some really unique skills to the region and develop. And I think there was some talk about, you know, the entrepreneurial nature of the Sunshine Coast could probably really leverage that quite well and take us again another step, you know, even further than what we potentially were going to be. Yeah. So I think there's some significant change for the Sunshine Coast.
All right, and you know, I don't like to labour the point, but we do live here because we like the Sunshine Coast just the way it is. So it is a slice of paradise. Now, to maintain our region's natural beauty, Council has expanded its conservation estate to more than 7,000 hectares, securing more than 100 hectares of additional land in 2020. Now we're going to hear from one of our rising leaders, Ella, on how expanding our green spaces contributes significantly to our livability and provides space for conservation, for flood management, for rural production and for sport and rec. So Ella, can you tell us a bit more about this?
Well, where to start? Green spaces are obviously vital for various things, pardon me, especially for maintaining our biodiversity. So I'm no scientist, so I wouldn't dare comment on any of the sort of scientific aspects of the ecological benefits of increasing green spaces on the coast. But obviously they benefit all of those areas. When I moved to the coast in 2009, the changes I've seen have been drastic. Sort of the most prime example I can give is the development of the Aurora by the Bruce Highway. That was once, you know, cattle farmlands. And I have noticed that a lot of farm area and forest area have become urbanized. Obviously, this is necessary to meet the demands of the growing population and the influx of new people and the new skill sets they bring. However, as someone who does live rurally and comes from an agricultural background, I think the fear of the encroaching urbanization is very real, and obviously we want to keep our farmlands pristine and the area surrounding it as such. So I think increasing our green spaces to compensate for the growing, population urbanisation and protecting the current green spaces we have is vital in order to have a sustainable future here on the coast. I just look at the Mary River as a prime example. We live very close to it, and it is the absolute life force for all farmers in the region. It provides us water, and obviously that water, keeps our livestock and crops alive, and we feed the coast. Not only that, but it is the lifeblood for also tourism in the area. I know it attracts a lot of people, out especially into the Kenilworth area. It's a very beautiful river, and I know there's a lot of recreational activities that are carried out on it each day. Not to mention from an ecological perspective, I don't know the scientific binomial name for it, but I know it's called the punk rock turtles, I think is the name it's given. It's critically endangered, so making sure that area is preserved for the species to hopefully regain population numbers is absolutely vital. And also just in regards to keeping our green spaces, pristine, for example, like the floodplains, interrupting the water cycles that are carried out in that area can have detrimental effects on climate, on flooding patterns, and even for the wildlife who inhabit those areas. I think the term green spaces, it's quite broad, but I feel for a lot of people when they think of a green space, I think the image of sort of just a wasted sort of bushland comes to mind that can't be used. However, I think they're more than just spaces of unusable wilderness. I think green spaces can be very, very masterfully incorporated into urban environments, and I think they can actually increase the value of those sort of urban areas. I know in the States, houses that have trees growing, I think, on their pavements or on sort of the islands just between either side of the road actually can increase their house value by quite a significant percentage. And whether even just as standalone areas of wilderness like a national park, for example, I think they have incredible potential for ecotourism, for recreational activities, and there are some scientifically proven benefits of spending time in nature, and I'm not exactly sure the exact statistics, but I am aware that they can benefit physical health by decreasing, lowering blood pressure, and they are known to help lessen the symptoms of multiple mental health effects. So,
thank you, Ella. And it's true, a lot of people come here to the Sunshine Coast, don't they, because they're flocking here for the beauty of the region. And I think the council is really trying to listen to people like you and other experts and keep it in the way that we already love the Sunshine Coast. So I'll ask you, Mayor Mark, how are things going with our Biosphere nomination?
Well, they're going very well. These are significant assignments, so sometimes, and there's very tight deadlines. The impact of COVID has seen us push that deadline back. However, it's given us more time to consult with interested parties, and in particular the Kabi First Nations people, who obviously have managed this landscape for 60-odd thousand years. And that's been a very favourable engagement. We're hoping to complete our nomination, which is currently with the state government, and will then need to go to the federal government. We hope to complete that in January. It'll go to the federal government. From there it will go to UNESCO, and UNESCO will make a decision, and we'll probably get an answer hopefully around September next year. They only declare biospheres once a year. But what it should do in terms of a Sunshine Coast context is help reassure our community that we are serious about having the very best synergy we can. We can't ignore the fact that we are a growth area, and the SEQ regional plan expects the Sunshine Coast to carry more people into the future. And they'll want to come, as I said before, just like the last 100,000 have come in the last 30 years. So we need to be very carefully managing that. It's ideal for us to use as a tool to attract tourism. People want to go to areas that are observed as biospheres, but it also, I think, has great prospects for the agricultural sector. If we can build up our reputation for producing clean, green produce and be recognised as a biosphere, then hopefully in international markets that provides a better price for our producers. Now, I appreciate the logistics chain from the producer to the end user is significant, but again, utilising technology through our broadband submarine cable and blockchain technology that helps us demonstrate the provenance of where our food is coming from and how it's been developed. In the eyes of many people, they're prepared to pay a big premium to have food of that type. So, I think we're well placed around our investment in nature through the biosphere and utilising the submarine cable to, if you like, create a digital hub, a digital trade hub.
Which is hopefully a little more gentle on the environment.
Well, it will be because, like I say, we're not creating smokestacks. We're creating industry largely, not entirely, but largely driven through digital connectivity and digital opportunities. But also, these are high-paying jobs.
Yep.
It's worth remembering that when we first started to examine our Sunshine Coast economy in 2013-14, we found that household incomes were 22% below the state average. Today, we've whittled that back to only 8% below, and I think in the very near future we'll have that back to par, and maybe a little better into the future. And that's what's important for people on the Sunshine Coast, that they and their kids can live here. They can have a variety of employment opportunities and high-paying jobs because we've invested in the sort of industries, health, education, research, knowledge industries, agriculture, clean tech, because they sit very neatly with our environmental aspirations. And that, as I say, creates that synergy between economy, environment and community, which ultimately is, I think, the right place to be.
So Ella, as a young person, when you hear Mr Mayor speak like that about the future and growing the Sunshine Coast, but do you like the way that sounds going into the future?
I think it sounds absolutely fantastic, and I have no doubt that within the next couple of decades we will fulfil that dream that council has to be Australia's most sustainable region, and I must say I think we are fantastically on track for that. And I think the biosphere is a very important part of that, and it was something I was involved in last year, and council worked incredibly hard on it, and it was an honour to be a part of that. And in regards to the growth of the Sunshine Coast, I really look very forward to see how we are going to be dealing with, environmental challenges that arise as we have, an increasing population. I'm sure that we will most certainly find sustainable ways of providing energy and dealing with waste production. So the Containers for Change scheme is something that I have seen through quite a few facilities on the Sunshine Coast, and I would really hope that that is something that will be more utilised by people in the future.
That's right. It is. We're just going to look forward with optimism, don't we?
Definitely.
Now, we mentioned this briefly before, Mr Mayor, the Blue Heart, which I understand is going, I think has more recently won an award. But I'm here to ask the basic questions today because I hadn't heard about Blue Heart until you told me about it yesterday. But it is basically acknowledging that global warming is going to inundate the floodplains of the Sunshine Coast and then try to work that to our advantage. Is that correct?
Yeah, in essence, it's a very low-lying area, the north branch of the Maroochy River. It's a big flood storage area. As I said earlier, it traditionally has been used for growing sugarcane. The mill in Nambour closed down about 20 years ago. That made it less viable for the growing of sugarcane. It has been, impacted by issues of salination. The man-made drains, aren't sort of have the maintenance they need. There's a variety of species growing there that probably are contrary to best use. So council, working with the state government and Unity Water, as I say, we own about 1,250 hectares of land around that river system, of the 5,000 hectares that we've earmarked for the Blue Heart. But in essence, it is about trying to, or do our bit to try and minimise the amount of carbon in the atmosphere that is having an impact on global warming.
All right.
And you know, I mean, again, working with the Carey people who, you know, recognise that area as being, you know, very important. It creates opportunities for the future, new economic opportunities, and also new tourism opportunities.
And now, I know there's a lot of talk online and in the community about inundation, and there's old timers on the Sunshine Coast who say, well, you know, if you've been here a long time, you know that this is going to go underwater and council needs to manage it. Tell us, what is your strategy around managing inundation?
Well, right at the moment, we've been engaging with the community on our coastal hazard adaptation strategy, which is a joint effort between council and the state government to understand what the impacts of climate change, global warming will be on our region. And people can go online and look at, on our website, you know, a variety of maps that are indicating what it's like now and what it could be like in 2100. And people will be surprised at some significant areas of inundation. Now, whether that sparked the commentary that you've been hearing from people, possibly it has, because this has obviously been out there for some weeks now. You know, the fact of the matter is we are, when you stand back from it, a fairly significant floodplain. I mean, obviously there are high areas, but so we do need to be very mindful of how that is developed, and particularly around things like flood storage. You'll be aware that there's been various proposals at different times for the land west of Coolum and west of the Sunshine Motorway. Yep. For, you know, possible development. Well, you know, council stands opposed to that, and that is why we've created the Blue Heart. And we think long term there's probably more value in our environmental credentials and the things we're able to do that will benefit people in the future around tourism, without necessarily, you know, trying to engineer a solution that may put a lot of people at threat.
So what about these old timers? I mean, I like hearing that. That sounds great to me. What about old timers who think, you know, does council know this and does council know that? You want to hear from them, don't you? And the coastal hazard adaptation strategy is about hearing from people.
Absolutely. It's out there seeking consultation from our community. Anybody who would like to participate in it, you know, should take that opportunity. I mean, I'm interested in particularly the views of those people who've been here for a long time and have perhaps seen things change. And I'm also aware that there are some out there who've been here for a long time who argue nothing's changed. And that's the sort of world we live in, I guess, and it's about taking the best scientific advice, but also where there are historical markers that we can use that help us make better decisions for the future. Council would be doing that as well. And I have great regard for the staff who work in this area for council and the advice they provide. You know, it's not easy, but the same can be said for a lot of the Queensland coastline. And that's why things like the work we're doing in the Blue Heart around creating a blue carbon farm opens up enormous opportunities all the way up the Queensland coast when you can think of how much coastline there is, how much wetland and mangroves there are. And most people would think, you know, carbon sequestration is in trees, and it absolutely is. Yeah. But a lot of it is also in, around and underwater. And on the coastline, that's where we are.
It's an exciting project. Back to you, our new CEO, Emma Thomas. So what do you see as your priorities? What's first for you in 2021?
Well, I think we've spoken a lot today about COVID and COVID recovery, and front of mind for us is the recovery of the community and recovery of the economy at the Sunshine Coast. We're expecting a very big Christmas, and obviously that will help, but I think we've got a lot more work to do to continue to work with the community to understand where those impacts have been and help that. We also have a lot of ageing assets that we need to turn our attention to as we have some more significant weather events that has a bigger impact on our infrastructure, and we need to think about that in preparation for our budget that we put forward. And then there's the big projects that we continue to undertake. You've heard the Mayor speak about things like the stadium and understanding our work towards that so that we can work with all the different levels of government to get some of those big infrastructure projects done.
Now, I know a question that a lot of people are going to ask, and I make no bones about it. I live in Alex. So you have a transport background, and there is already a lot of talk about light rail. Are you going to be pushing for light rail?
Let's just start with the population growth that we expect to happen on the coast. And I think everybody knows that it's happening. It's projected to happen even more now because with people able to work from home, Andrew's just talked about this, there's more people coming and being able to work. And so the pain of transport that's happening across the transport network right now, I think, is a very topical conversation. There are a lot of people who are raising this in our community consultation as a really important issue to solve. When we're a predominant car-based society, which is what we are, we're all used to jumping in our cars, driving to the beach, driving to the shops, just having a car park. That's great until the volume of those cars grows and grows and we don't know what to do. And so I always think that this is about providing options for us to have different forms of travel. If we stay on cars, then what does that mean for our future? We can keep making roads, and we can make more and more and more roads, but that eats into our green space, it takes up front verges of people, we end up, there's people who are living along those roads right now, so if we don't expand the roads, people rat run, and that's already happening, and coming from Alex, you'll know that people will be moving into the backs of the suburbs to avoid congestion.
So what about the thoughts about light rail might bring with it high density, or what's your answer to those concerns?
Well, I think the population growth is bringing about a need for accommodation and a need for us to accommodate people somehow. And that is going to be impacted somewhat by our ability to travel, whether that's a bus or a train. If we all stay in our one-person cars, that's more and more cars. A bus fits 60 to 100 people in it at a time, and that can take that many cars off the road. A rapid transit solution, whether it's light rail or one of the many other different types of rapid transit, can fit up to 200 people at a time. And so our ability to move people between nodes, not just build along a whole frontage, will be what we're looking at to form a really good transport network that serves us well into the future and gives us environmental alternatives, gives us alternatives when we get older and we don't want to drive anymore, when we want to move to go to hospitals or universities that are being done here. I think we need really good options for us, and we'll be working on what the best options are for the recommendation to Council.
I probably should give you a chance to weigh in on this, Sandra. I mean, I'm speaking from a perspective of someone who's a resident who just likes their beach looking the way it is, but from a business point of view, I suppose you hear plans about growth and they are music to your ears.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, growth. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Growth is a good thing for business. That's for sure. And it's not just the it's not obvious the obvious benefits of what comes over or through the tills for I guess retail, but I think we touched on it before. It's about the talent that the region then attracts and the growth that you then get and the innovation that comes from that. So I think from all angles, it's a positive thing. There's obviously you need to get the balance right for all things environmental as well. From what I can see, we seem to be doing okay in that space, and probably if not leading. And certainly, I'm personally interested in this journey and to see what happens over the next decade. It'll be good to watch.
So Emma, as the new CEO, how are you planning to connect with the community? You've got to talk to Andrew and to me.
I know. Well, this is a good start, isn't it?
That's right. But what is Council's plan for community connectivity?
Well, we've got so much consultation going out all the time, and in fact, one of the criticisms is sometimes we've got too much going out into the community. I think at the moment the team is very innovative and happy to think about different ways. We really want to be able to connect with people at, where they feel best to connect. I think of people as they're busy in their lives. The last thing they want to do is go and log on to the council website and put something in, but really, how can we best engage with people and let them know what's going on in the community when they get home from work and they just flop down, they want to just think about something. How do we let them know? And so that's the conversation we're having as a team. We're really up for it, and we want to make sure we get out there as much as possible.
And we've been talking about the digital world. It's actually there's more ways to find people, but in some ways that makes it harder, doesn't it? Because people don't sit down and watch the news or listen to the radio or read the paper anymore, and that's you've got to find us down our rabbit holes.
And get the balance of voices. It's great today that we have different demographics, different parts of the community talking here. But it's really important that we get out to hear from our younger people, from new people to the coast, from people who've lived here a really long time, from people who are immigrants to our country. There's a lot of different voices to listen to and make sure we're working the best we can for the whole community.
And there's always a lot of information on Council's website, isn't there? If people have got questions, there is actually, sometimes they forget the smartest thing to do is check the website first.
Yeah, we have a lot of clever people doing a lot of great work, and there's always a way to find information on what we're doing.
All right then, well, on a final note, I think we'll go back to you, Mr Mayor. It's nearly Christmas. What is your wish for 2021?
Well, thank you, Caroline. Look, my wish is that we have a happy community. Hopefully we've moved beyond COVID-19 and people can feel more secure in living on the Sunshine Coast. I'd like to see our plans come to fruition such that we're able to satisfy the needs of our community, again, whether it's on an environmental front or a community front or an economic front. We want to be healthy, smart and creative. So I'd like our council staff, I want to thank our council staff and continue to encourage them to be guardians of our community as people recover, and whether that's in a sort of a personal or recreational or business arena. But I'd like to wish all of our citizens who I believe have done an incredibly good job and genuinely been part of Team Sunshine Coast to pull us through. I want to wish them a very happy, holy and safe Christmas and a prosperous 2021. And I and Council look forward to continuing to serve you in the very best ways we can.
Thank you. And I might actually just quickly go to the rest of our panel. What about you, Emma? Welcome to the Sunshine Coast officially for your first Christmas. What are you hoping for 2021?
I'm hoping for, to continue work with a great team. I'm hoping that my team actually gets a bit of a rest over the Christmas period because they've worked really, really hard this year. And then it's upwards and onwards for 2021. That's
great. Andrew, what about you? What about Huddle?
Yeah, so for Huddle in 2021, I think we have a couple of big announcements that'll come out in the next week or two that will see some significant growth in our operations centre, which should contribute to local economy and the subsequent benefits of that. Plus, for us, it's all there's lots of partnerships, etc., that are coming into play, and I think we should be able to do some good things.
That's great. And now, Vicky, at IFYS, this is a tricky time of the year, isn't it?
It is.
Christmas is exciting, but it's also really challenging for some families. So what about you? What are you hoping for?
So we'll be working through Christmas, supporting our communities as we do every year, but I think I'm really excited by 2021. I think that we can build on what we've done this year. And I think we've got a great community strategy behind us to really platform from, and I think there's so much opportunity. It's really harnessing that, but working in collaboration and with our community members, which is really exciting.
All right then, and Ella, so you're going into year 12 next year.
Yes.
And you already mentioned what a tough year it was for this year's year 12, so I guess for 2021, you're hoping for no global pandemic.
Please, that would be fantastic, but yeah, I think we can all agree, hopefully we're going to move away from COVID. I think we've all learnt a lot of valuable lessons from this experience, and I can't wait to see Council and the Sunshine Coast grow, getting more youth involved in environmental issues, more connection with rural farmers to, with the coast. So yeah, I have a very positive vibe from 2021.
That's great, thank you. And it's a great note to end on, and we thank you again for being so brave and coming out. We had really genuinely had to bust you out of hospital for this, so we are very grateful to have you with us. And that's it, everybody. So thanks to all of our panel members, and also to you as a community who have joined us today on our very first virtual State of the Region from Sunshine Coast Council. So we hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for your honest and open answers, everybody. Have a safe and happy New Year.